Let's be honest, most of us are not great at saving for retirement or dragging ourselves to the gym or, well, doing anything that's good for us in the long run. And you might think it's some kind of character flaw, but it's not. It turns out the answer lies in this really fascinating, kind of weird quirk of the human brain. So today, we're going to dive into the science of your relationship with the most important person you'll ever know, but who you probably treat like a total stranger, your future self.
To get our heads around this, I want to start with a really extreme example. Just look at this quote. This is from a man named Pedro Rodriguez Filho, who is one of the world's most prolific serial killers. I mean, he claimed to have killed over 100 people. And yet, after decades in prison, he gets out, becomes a YouTuber, and starts advising young people to stay away from crime. Why? Because he saw his past self as a completely different, and to him, disgusting person.
So you have to ask, how is that even possible? Can a person really, truly change that much? And more to the point, what does this wild, extreme case tell us about our own lives, about our own capacity for change, and our relationship with the person we're going to be in 5, 10, or even 20 years from now?
I mean, just look at his life story. The arc is unbelievable. He goes from being this incredibly violent young man, he actually tattooed "I kill for pleasure" on his arm, to an older man who said he found joy in transforming others and counseling them away from a life of crime. The difference between his past and present self is, well, it's about as big a gap as you can possibly imagine.
You see, Pedro's story really pushes this classic philosophical puzzle, the ship of Theseus, to its absolute limit. You know the one. If you have a ship and you replace every single plank of wood on it over the years, is it still the same ship? Well, what about you? If all your cells replace themselves, and your personality changes, and your values evolve, are you still the same person you were 10 years ago? Or are we really just a series of different people who happen to share the same name and social security number?
Okay, so let's get into the diagnosis for why this happens. The reason we often make these bad long-term decisions, it's not a moral failing, it's not because you're lazy, it's neurological. There is literally a blind spot in our brains when it comes to thinking about the future.
Psychologists have found something pretty remarkable. When you and I think about ourselves right now, in this moment, we see the world through our own eyes, right? It's a first-person view. It feels vivid, real. But when we try to imagine ourselves way off in the future, our perspective shifts. We tend to see that person from a distance, like we're watching a character in a movie. It's a blurry, third-person view. And if you think that's just a feeling, well, there's hard science to back it up. MRI studies found that when you think about your future self, the part of your brain that lights up is the exact same part that activates when you think about a total stranger. And in the study, they literally used celebrities like Matt Damon or Natalie Portman as the strangers. So, to your brain, future you might as well be an A-list actor you're never going to meet. It's just some other person.
And here is the perfect, if slightly gross, illustration of how this plays out in real life. In one study, people were asked how much of a disgusting drink, it was like a soy sauce and ketchup mix, they'd be willing to drink. When the drink was for their future self a few weeks later, they signed up to drink 2.5 times more than they would right now. And guess what? That was the exact same amount they assigned to a complete stranger. We literally make our future selves suffer more, just like we would a stranger.
So what, right? Who cares if our brain has this weird quirk? Well, it matters a lot. Because this mental gap, this disconnect, causes us to make these predictable errors in judgment, what researcher Hal Hershfield calls time travel mistakes. And they consistently sabotage the well-being of that stranger we call our future self.
Annie says there are 3 big ones we all make. First, we miss our flight. We get so stuck in the here and now that we don't even think about the future. Second, we do some poor trip planning. So we might think about the future, but it's all vague and unrealistic. And third, we pack the wrong clothes. This is when we assume that our future self is going to want and feel the exact same things we do today, which is almost never true.
You know, Jerry Seinfeld actually has the perfect bit that explains missing your flight. He talks about night guy versus morning guy. Night guy wants to stay up late and have fun, completely anchored in the pleasure of the present. He just leaves the consequences for morning guy. We do this all the time. We prioritize what we want right now and treat our future self's problems as, well, someone else's problem.
Okay, so we've got the diagnosis and the complications.
It might seem a little bleak, but here is the good news. Science also gives us the prescription. There are real, actionable strategies we can use to bridge this gap and actually become friends with our future selves.
Okay, so the first strategy is all about shrinking that psychological distance. It's about taking the future from this far-off, abstract idea and making it feel more tangible, more vivid, and a heck of a lot closer. So how do we actually do that?
This is just so cool. In one experiment, they showed people a digitally aged photo of themselves. And just by seeing that picture, by making that future self a real, vivid person with a face, people allocated way more money to a hypothetical retirement account. All of a sudden, that stranger you're saving for looks a lot like you, and you start to care about their well-being.
And check this out. It's another powerful trick to make the future feel closer. Look at this chart. We're talking about the exact same amount of money, but when you ask someone to save $150 a month, it feels huge. Only 6% signed up. But $5 a day? Almost a quarter of people signed up for that. It just feels like skipping a fancy coffee. When you break big future goals into small daily actions, it feels so much more doable.
All right, on to strategy number 2. This one is for those times when we know our present self is weak. We know we're going to be tempted to sabotage our future self's plans. This strategy is about creating systems that keep us on the right path even when our willpower fails.
And the key here is something called a commitment device. I love this idea. You can think of it like the bumpers in a bowling lane. It's a choice you make right now, in the present, that makes it harder or even impossible for your future self to screw up. You're basically protecting future you from present you's worst impulses.
And this isn't just a theory, these things really exist. Take the K-Safe. It's basically a cookie jail, or a credit card jail, or a phone jail. You put the temptation inside, you set a timer, and it locks. You can't get it out. Your present self makes the good decision, and your future self has no choice but to thank you for it.
Okay, our third and final strategy might be the most clever one of all. Instead of just using brute force and discipline to do hard things, what if we could trick ourselves into making those hard things in the present feel, well, less like a sacrifice and more enjoyable?
And this brilliant idea is called temptation bundling. It's so simple. You just link something you should do but kind of hate, like going to the gym, with something you absolutely want to do, like listening to your favorite true crime podcast. And you make a rule. You are only allowed to listen to that podcast while you're at the gym. Suddenly, going to the gym isn't a chore anymore. It's your ticket to finding out what happens next in the story.
Now here's a really important piece of the puzzle. A word of caution. Becoming friends with your future self isn't just about endless sacrifice. Because if we only live for tomorrow, we deprive our future selves of the very things that make life worth living. The memories, the experiences, the relationships. Spending time and money on those things today is also an investment in your future happiness.
So, let's bring this all home. All of this fascinating research, it's not just a bunch of fun facts. It's really a call to action. It's an invitation to fundamentally rethink one of the most important relationships you'll ever have.
Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't just to have more money in the bank or be a few pounds lighter. It's about empathy. It's about learning to treat the person you will become with the same kindness, compassion, and consideration you'd offer your best friend. Because they're not a stranger, they are you.
And that leaves us with one final simple question. Not some huge, life-changing plan, just one small thing. What is one small thing you can do today to be a better friend to your future self? Maybe it's just laying out your gym clothes for tomorrow morning. Maybe it's putting $5 in a jar. Or maybe it's just taking a quiet moment to imagine that person and ask them what they need from you. What's the first step you're going to take?